The people see the outside of us, but God sees the heart in us. That's why He chose all of us to sit in here today. Y'all know I got kicked out of the last church I attended. Best thing that ever happened to me.
Right.
I gave my whole heart and soul to that church. There was nothing I wouldn't do for those people in that church. I would show up and show out every day at that church. I lived Sunday to Sunday for that church. I loved that church.
Amen.
But I got kicked out of that church. God wasn't kicking me out of the church.
Yeah.
God was saying, you're ready for the next step.
Amen.
Amen.
That's good. That's real good.
David wasn't just tending sheep, hanging out with the sheep, smelling like the sheep. He was ready for the next step.
The next step.
And God had him anointed to get the job done. Let's skip down to 17:4. David's been anointed to be the next king. Chapter 17 and verse 4. And there went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistines named Goliath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. That makes Goliath 12 to 13 feet tall. It's estimated he weighed between 300 and 400 pounds. The chainmail armor that he wore weighed 194 pounds by itself. The man was big and scary and mean. Let's skip down to verse 8. 8 through 11 here. And he stood and he cried unto the armies of Israel and said unto them, Why are ye come out to set your battle in array? Am not I a Philistine, and ye servants to Saul? Choose ye a man for you, and let him come down to me. If he be able to fight with me and kill me, then we will be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then shall ye be our servants and serve us. And the Philistines said, I defy the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man that we may fight together. And when Saul and all Israel heard those words from the Philistines, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. They were afraid because they were judging by outward appearances. Just like Samuel made a mistake and judged David by his appearance, they made a mistake and judged David by it, or judged Goliath by it. They were afraid because they saw no man to be able to stand up to him. And he taunted them twice a day for 40 days. Some of us have Goliaths in our lives, and they've taunted us for 40 years. Your dad said you can't do anything. Every time you try to open that business, you hear Dad's voice, don't you? That's a Goliath taunting you. You're not smart enough. You're not good enough. You're not pretty enough. You're not holy enough. You're not enough. That's a Goliath in your life. And it taunts you several times a day. Every time you try to step out, Goliath stands up and taunts you. Come on. You ain't no good. You can't do it. We need to dream a pretty big dream to be able to lasso this church we're looking at. But I'm not going to let the size of it or the size they want and as far as the amount of money they need taunt me.
Amen.
Amen?
Amen.
We are enough.
Amen.
We can do all things.
Amen.
I'm not going to let the failure of other churches slow us down. God did not create us to fail, nor did He make us to be tentative. Amen? He gave us a mighty spirit, but we act like puny people. Amen? Let me tell you something about Somebody knows a little bit about it. When you stand in front of another man, and you got those gloves on, and he's 3, 4, 5, 6 inches taller than you, you think he has all the advantages because he's taller than you. But he doesn't. Amen? Because the smaller fighter can go up underneath. He can make those big arms work against him. You know, Mike Tyson was only 5'11", but he was knocking out guys who were 6'4" and 6'5" all the time. Amen? So the outward appearance, when he stood there against certain men, you go, oh man, there's no way this little guy can beat this guy. But he came inside, got underneath them big arms, and took him out. Became one of the most feared fighters of all time. Because he knew his stuff. But if we judge by outward appearances, somebody else would be the big dude. Amen? David was ready to be carried into a new place. Are we ready to be carried in a new place today? What stage are we in? David was ready. He'd been anointed king. Let's skip to verse 26, 17 to 26.